I'm Leigh Mercree, and I'm so excited to be here today with David Essel. Hi, David.
Hi, Amy. Good to be with you as well. I'm excited about today.
Me too. Mm-hmm. So David is an author, a master life and business coach, a television and radio host, an addiction recovery coach, and an international speaker. His radio show that's nationally syndicated of 24 years is on iHeartRadio from 6 to 8 p.m. on Monday nights and on TalkDavid.com. You're a busy guy.
There's always something new happening. That is the truth.
I know
yes.
it. And since you've been in the wellness industry for over 20 years, do you have one top tactic that you've gleaned to a happy and fulfilling life?
You know, Amy Leigh, the answer is self-love, without a doubt. I think when we all talk about exercise and nutrition and meditation and eating right, and prayer and all those kind of things. Doing what you love for a living is really important. I think that decreases stress and increases self-esteem and confidence. But all that kind of in a ball is really someone who loves themselves. And for our people right now that are watching us and they're wondering, well, I say I love myself, but do I really? Because that's a great question. Do I really? How would you know? Like if you say you loved yourself, what would be some examples that would prove that you loved yourself?
Right. I think it would be your actions, the way you talk to yourself internally, the way you talk about yourself externally.
Good.
That's what I would think.
Yeah, and who do you hang around with? Because that's an example of how much we love ourselves. Are there people that are constantly putting us down? If we keep them in our life, then we're not really loving ourselves, right? If we're in an abusive environment at work and we stay, then that probably isn't a sign of self-love. If we have an addiction to food or alcohol or nicotine or television or spending or whatever it might be, those would all be signs against self-love. So someone who loves themselves, what you said right there is they're talking to themselves in their own mind with kind, loving thoughts. They forgive themselves easily for making mistakes, right?
Yeah.
They do what Buddha says, fall down 7 times, stand up 8. They don't when a failure hits, they don't crumble with low self-esteem. It's like they love themselves so much that they say, I deserve happiness and health and wealth, and I will do whatever it takes to get it. That's self-love.
That's it. And you can always fake it till you make it.
Absolutely. Most of us do, even to this day.
I think we all do sometimes.
Yes, we do. I know that for sure. Yes.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, what really ignites your passion for writing?
In the beginning, I wrote because I got a contract. Honestly, this is the truth, and this is how a lot of writers start. All of a sudden we get a contract, and then we get serious, and we're focused and structured and organized. Over the years, Amy, I've found something really fascinating, is that when you write when you're inspired, the best writing in the world comes out, and it's not work anymore.
Agreed.
So I like to just if you want to use the word spirit or flow or intuition or whatever, when that hits, I write. And on average with me, and it's different for everyone, but on average it's about once a year. Once a year I'll get highly inspired. Someone will mention something, they'll say, that would be a great book. I'll be telling a story about something. They'll say, oh my gosh, David, that would be a great book. And 2 or 3 or 4 months will go by, and all of a sudden I'll go, it's ready. It's been incubating.
Yeah.
I've carried it. It's 9 months. The baby is ready. That's right. So now I just write when I'm inspired to write. But there's a lot of other authors that write as a job, and I'm not saying they're wrong. John Irving, famous novelist.
Yes.
He writes 8 hours a day, whether it's any good or bad or whatever. A very good friend of mine, Randy Wayne White, who has 22 best-selling novels out there. He's amazing, right? He writes 1,500 words a day.
Good for him.
If it takes him 45 minutes or 6 hours, when he's done with 1,500, he's done,
That's similar to my strategy.
Is it really? Yeah. And so I think for our viewers, if you want to write a book, first of all, you should.
Yes.
Don't keep putting it off. Write.
Do it now.
But if it makes sense to be very focused and organized and disciplined, because that's the only way it's going to get done, do it. And if you're more of a natural writer that is based on intuition and spirit driven, then wait till it hits. And then, no matter where you are, airport, taxi, start writing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I picture you in a taxi.
Absolutely.
Making notes. And
yeah.
I think that's wonderful. And it's always a blessing when that intuition and that inspiration hits.
Absolutely.
As a writer,
yes.
I can vouch for that.
Yes. You get into the flow and you don't want to stop, and it's beautiful.
Yeah. So we're going to switch directions, and I wondered if you would share your top 2 tips for romantic happiness for people who are recently divorced.
Oh, absolutely. Number one, and so many people will not want to hear this. Okay, but listen, I say this to my audiences all the time. Whenever a speaker, myself or anyone else, says something that you go, oh, that's not for me, it probably is for you.
Yes.
So number one is take a year off. Someone who's recently divorced, get to know yourself again.
Yes.
What are your hobbies? What are your passions? Take time for you. Fridays and Saturday nights, don't go out just to go out.
Yeah.
Spend time with your emotions, with your healing, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you're alone and you're crying because you're alone, that's a good thing. We're processing emotions.
Yes.
When you're on your own for the first time, many times people are on their own for the first time in 10, 15, 25, 35 years.
Yeah.
Get to know who you are again. Take the time off. Don't rush to get back into a relationship. The other thing is, I always tell people after a divorce is, what was your role in the divorce?
Mm-hmm.
Write about it. Even if you only had 10%, if only 10% was you, that 10% is huge.
Yeah.
To be able to own that and to say, wow, I neglected my partner. I didn't get us help when we should have gotten help.
Mm-hmm.
I was codependent and put up with their nonsense for 15 years when it should have been. Take ownership for your role in the dysfunction of the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Then you'd be more ready to move on to a healthier one.
Mm-hmm. I love it. Great tips. You have interviewed some amazing people over the years on your radio show, which is wonderful, by the way. Who gave the most unexpected or surprising answer?
Without a doubt. And we can look at people from all walks of life. I can't think of an area, actors and musicians and, personal growth authors like you and I that are just doing wonderful work. I can't think of an area of life that we haven't interviewed. Some fascinating ones were like Meatloaf and Kenny Loggins from the world of music.
Oh, neat.
Like really, really cool, and a former NFL All-Pro linebacker, Keith Mitchell from the New Orleans Saints, phenomenal. He was a guy, as a matter of fact, that got paralyzed, taken off the field.
Wow.
And he is one of the top yoga gurus in the United States. He came back from his paralyzation, so all these people are so neat. But Susie Orman takes the cake.
Wow.
The financial guru, the television host, the radio host, by far, around 1991 or 92, she was just breaking into big time, and I was with Westwood One Radio back then. And we got this, and I remember my producer calling and saying, we've got this really up-and-coming star.
Right.
Who would have known that she would turn into the mega star that she is, right? She was so cool. So I'm on the show talking to her. She was really great, very high energy. Susie has very, very high energy. And I asked her a question, Amy. I said, was there one experience in life that really threw you for a tailspin, and how did you overcome it? And she told me the most surprising story, that when she was working in financial planning for years, 10 years, she was barely making a living. Then one year it all came together and she made a ton of money. Took her first vacation in 10 years to come back to find out on the Monday when she reopened her office that her office manager had embezzled every penny to her name.
Oh my God.
So you can imagine, 10 years of hard work,
Yes.
no benefit,
Right.
1 year, this massive financial windfall,
Right.
and then it's all gone because
Everything.
someone stole it from you.
Wow.
So to make a long story short, she went back into doing her work, but she couldn't get her business going. She worked with a counselor. The counselor said, is there anyone around money that you have a resentment or anger with? And Susie says, oh my gosh, yes. And she told the story, and the woman said, if you don't let go of that anger and forgive that person and move on, you'll never go back to that level of success that you experienced in that one big year.
Wow.
Susie spent the time, did the work, fully forgave that woman.
Wow.
And just before I interviewed her on my show, she got her first big book contract. The radio contract came in, and she said, David, it's all about resentments. Let them go, move on, life will follow you through. It was a great interview, Amy.
That's a great testament to the power of forgiveness.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is. And a lot of people are afraid to forgive because they think they're letting the other person off the hook, but they're really letting themselves off the hook.
Hugely.
Yeah. So it was a great, great interview.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. And thanks to Susie for sharing it with you all those years ago. In your life, has an act of kindness, no matter how small or large, 'large, truly touched your heart? And what was it?
Well, I'll tell you, I think, 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 I think I can see myself many times being touched by the unexplainable. And I'll tell you who has touched me some of the deepest ways are the homeless. I could tell you stories. As a matter of fact, I wrote a book called Rockstar, and it was based on a homeless man. And I'm getting chills right now. And there's been multiple homeless men that have really touched me. But I lived in Sarasota, Florida on the waterfront. And right on the waterfront is where a lot of the homeless congregate. And they panhandle and all that. Marina Jack is a famous place that a lot of the homeless are. And there was a guy named Mark that used to come up to me every day. I'd go for a run. So I'd run from my condo, come out back, and as I'm walking back to my condo, Mark would appear from the bushes, as he always did panhandling. And I would look at him, and he never knew how I could remember his name because he was heavily addicted to both drugs and alcohol. Sure. He was probably 30, and he looked about 65, just really worn out. And I would say, Mark, it's good to see you again. And the very first thing would always be, how do you know who I am? I go, well, Mark, I saw you yesterday. Like I can remember that far. Well, I don't remember seeing you. But he goes, and then he would come up with the bus story. I just need $1 to get on the bus to go get to be with my brother and work, is that kind of a story. So, and I never had money because I was running, So one day I said, Mark, I don't think I have any money. And I reached my pocket and I felt a $1 bill. I said, oh my gosh. So I pulled out the $1 bill and I went to hand it to him. And as I'm handing to it, Amy, I see it's a $5 bill. Now, even though I'm a really generous man, for some reason, when it comes to handing a $5 to a homeless person, I hesitated. Isn't that funny? It's like $2 is fine, but for some reason, $5 wasn't acceptable.
This wasn't what you were thinking.
That's right.
So you're thrown off.
So, but then I said, oh my gosh, he saw it.
Yeah.
So I go, here you go, Mark. Look, the only thing I'm going to ask you is that I'm going to bless that money for you. And I'm going to ask you to use it for your highest good. And what that means is something for maybe your stomach, Mark, like a meal or something, And he goes, oh, don't worry, I'll do it. I'm going to get on the bus and whatever. Yeah. I turn around to walk away, and he turns around and he goes, wait a minute, sir. He goes, this is a $5 bill. And I said, yes, I know. I said, that's all I have with me. And he said, well, I can't take a $5 bill without giving you something in return. Aww. Now think about that, Amy. Yeah. Like that touched me so deeply, right? Yeah. And he starts going through his knapsack. I go, Mark, I go, whatever you have, you need it more than I do. Yeah. Okay, so hold on to it. He goes, but I can't, sir. I can't take a $5 bill. I have to give you something back. So I said, well, Mark, why don't you do this? I'll see you tomorrow, I'm sure. I see you all the time. If you find something you want to give me, then he goes, no, I have a better idea. I make up really good stories. Can I give you a story for your $5 bill?
Sure, right.
So I said to him, my very first thing, Amy, I said, Mark, how long is the story?
Yeah, wondering.
Are we going to be here for an hour and a half or something? He goes, no, it's really short, but let me just start.
It'll be good.
Amy, he told me the most amazing story about the life of a rock.
Oh, wow.
And it became my book, Rockstar.
That's awesome.
And I said to him when he told me the story, I said, Mark, I'm going to put this into a book sometime. And I'm going to give you credit for it.
That's nice.
And he goes, would you do that? I said, yes. I never saw Mark again.
You're kidding.
Never again. I don't know what happened to Mark.
On your runs? And
I was there for another year, every day. Never saw him, Amy. Wow. But to think about a homeless person, panhandling, who said, I can't accept this without giving you something, touched me so deeply.
What a powerful story. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Mark is amazing.
Yeah. So, your book, The Power of Focus, is free on your website.
Absolutely free.
One of your many books, but this one's free, which is exciting.
That's right.
What inspired you to write it?
Do you know, Renee Bledsoe and I have been friends for years and years, and she's one of my editors, and she's the main editor for my books now. She's just amazing. We've known each other for probably 35 or 40 years, a long, long time. And I had told her that I was ready to write a book, and I thought it was going to be on focus, and she was all championing for me. She said, oh my gosh, do it. That's a strength of yours, a powerful strength of yours. So, as I mentioned to you before the show, I ended up doing via audio. We did it.
Awesome.
What's that called?
Transcription.
Transcription. Thank you. I picked up the phone. I just read the book into a medical transcriber's office. That's so cool. Like they typed it, sent it to me. It was the coolest thing. But when we got done with it, Renee is going through it. She's going, oh my Lord, David, this is like all of your work of 25 years is in this book. It really is true, right? Everything that I teach is in here. And she said to me, why don't you give it away?
Mm.
She said, this is the greatest thing you've probably ever written, and why don't you just give it away? Because we come from a place that you cannot give away too much. Right? That's our philosophy.
I feel the same way.
Right?
Yep.
Give it away, your secrets, quote unquote, or whatever. They're not secrets, they've been around since the beginning of time, but we just think it's ours. Right? It's so funny, we think it's our secret formula. And so when I was rereading the book, I thought, my gosh, she's right on. So we put it together, and now when people come to our website, talkdavid.com, they can download it in one of 8 different versions.
Awesome.
So if you want a PDF, if you want Kindle, if you want whatever you want, you can get it. And it is chock full of steps to take to become more focused and more successful in life.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day to talk with us.
You bet, Amy. This has been an absolute blast. I'm glad to be part of your show.
Me too.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, thank you all for watching. I'm Leigh Mercree. This is David Essel. And please remember to live joy, be kind, and love unconditionally today and every day.